It took me 100 days to reach 36% perfection, and honestly, I am unreasonably peeved about that. Mr. Key thinks he can just sit on his twisted throne of voyeurism and hand out arbitrary numbers based on how many times I used the public bathroom this week, or how many bottles of Mayor Lewis's own truffle oil I can sell on the black market. Well, fine, Mr. Key. I'm back for another 100 days, and this time we're gonna push for perfection. But I can't quite hit 100% because of a few recipes that I still won't have. We can exceed 99% with the right planning, though. On day 101, I decided that Mr. Key had wronged me so terribly that I would crush his stupid little challenges. 36%? Come on, dude. I gathered my ginger and stone from the island, gave Leo a bird feather, and headed home. I dropped off a birthday present and a quest item for Resmodius, then grabbed all my stone and staircases from storage. After that, I made a quick trip to Robin's to buy more stone and a workbench. Then, with no honor at all, I cleared the entire danger in the Deep quest in one day by just placing staircases when I couldn't find stairs quickly. I even had enough time to go to the night market and hand out gifts when I was done. I did forget that Evelyn doesn't like fish though. Whoops. On day 102, I basically just redid the layout on Field 2 all day. Where I used to have quality sprinklers, now I had iridium. I actually didn't have enough winter seeds to cover this, which means some of it will untill itself somehow, but that's alright. I mostly just needed the pattern ready for later. Day 103 was a good luck day, so I took care of things at home, checking on the animals and stuff. It was also a preserves jar day, but at this point I'm just using up cranberries and waiting for better crops in spring. Then I made a quick stop by Ginger Island to pick up some bombs and headed off to the desert. It was a pretty mediocre day though. I killed one more dino, which means I only need one more. But I couldn't find that last one, so that objective is still on the board. I also snagged some Omni Geodes, which I traded for artifact troves, but otherwise there wasn't much to speak of. On day 104, I had lots to do. It was a wine day, which meant I needed to make more kegs and replace everything in the quarry with new crops. Just like with preserves jars, I'm running low on valuable crops to keg, but that'll change soon. After running errands and replacing my kegs, I traveled to Ginger Island, where I got 11 more walnuts from harvesting crops and showing the frog my melon and wheat. I bought the obelisk to return home and Pierre's missing stock list from Mr. Key. With this, I can buy out-of-season crops for 50% more than they would normally cost. Is it worth it? Sometimes, but I intend to get everything in the room at some point. I would have considered the horse flute, but I don't have a horse. Day 105 was another busy day. I took care of the animals, who I noticed were out of food. That meant a trip to Marnie's to buy some hay. Then I dropped off the stock list with Pierre and bought nothing from him. I actually got that stock list basically to idiot-proof recipes for later. What I actually bought today were 300 starfruit to plant on Ginger Island. I spent the rest of my day clearing and planting and got the last walnut from harvesting crops. That means I just have the banana quest, garlic for the Gormon frog, and Birdie's request once Kent arrives in spring. Not bad. Day 106 was a Monday, meaning there were new quests today. I grabbed a bat extermination from Clint and Skull Cavern invasion from Mr. Key. I had actually just gotten the quest to get to floor 100 a couple of days ago, so this was perfect. I had no intention of playing fair though. This would be another staircase sweep. Mr. Key was playing right into my hands. I also expanded my pineapples on Ginger Island and continued making strawberry seeds at home. Pretty exciting. Day 107 was the day I would conquer the dangerous Skull Cavern. I planned to head over to Robin's to buy an absolute butt-ton of stone, but it was a Tuesday. Well, no matter. Instead, I finished filling up Field 2 with winter seeds. I honestly don't care that they won't grow in time. And I processed some animal products that were piling up. Then I went to the Skull Cavern anyway. It was a good luck day and I wanted to snag some radioactive ore. You don't really need a ton to craft every item, but you will need at least a couple bars and 2 more ore on top of that. That was accomplished easily enough. I also killed the very last Pepper Rex needed for the Protector of the Valley quest. That meant I only needed the fire spirit things from the volcano. Neat. I'm getting a little worried that Maru isn't asking about kids though. We don't have forever, Maru. Day 108 was the day I would conquer the dangerous Skull Cavern. For real though. If Mr. Key thinks that I won't throw a couple 100,000 gold at a problem, he has no idea who I am. Seriously though, 200,000 gold is a pretty good price for a permanent health upgrade and 40 key gems at this point. Obviously, this is much more manageable in year 1 before resource prices increase drastically. Stupid inflation. Speaking of which, I need to make sure to load up on a few things before Clint and Robin decide to jack up those prices in about a week. Oh, and Mr. Key did call me dishonorable for using staircases, but he praised me for mining up all that stone. Day 109 was the Feast of the Winter Star. And somehow I didn't record it, so here's a dramatic reenactment. I gave Leah goat cheese. That was about it. Day 110 was a huge bummer. I spent basically all day working on Clint's stupid bat quest. Then I fished for the mines fish, and I got a stonefish and a bunch of ghost fish. I have nothing more to say about day 110. Let's move on. On day 111, I awoke feeling exceptionally cranky. But it was a Saturday, and that meant it was a keg day. Unfortunately, I'm really low on keggable stuff right now. I used crystal fruit, strawberries, and the last of my cranberries, but we need some new crops for these kegs, and soon. I even had to make a trip to get some pineapples from Ginger Island to fill the last few kegs. While I was there, I scooped up a lava eel from the forge. Back in town, I worked on the ice pit. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think this was one of the worst fishing experiences ever. It says I have about a 6 or 7% chance to hook the thing, but I just didn't. Every time the stupid ping noise would go off and I had a fish, I would get all tense and excited just for the briefest moment. But it was always a stupid ghost fish. I could feel the joy draining from my body with each algae. Every Joja Cola brought me closer to despair. I spent so long here that I ran out of stamina. I couldn't remember if current luck or daily luck affected fish catch percentages, so I ate a spicy eel, desperate for an edge. It didn't seem to increase my catch percentage, but I hooked an ice pip. Then it was just a fight for my life to land the thing, and when I did, I was rewarded with the Master Angler achievement. That's one goal down. Day 112 was the final day of year 1, and I realized I had really been slacking on this first leg of the run. Today was going to be an important day. Before it started though, I got the Stardrop from Willie for catching every fish. After that, I harvested all the winter forage and replanted seeds so the spots would stay tilled and watered for tomorrow. Next, I took care of my animals. And when I say took care of, I mean that in the mafia sense. I sold a whole bunch of duplicates whose names I didn't even bother to check, and I bought more rabbits for their feet and pigs for truffles. I should have gotten the pigs right away when I started this video, to be honest, because they're going to be small for a long time. Whoops. I knew the prices of stone, wood, ores, and coal would all increase tomorrow, so just like your average United States senator, I dropped a cool $1 million on commodities right before the new price was locked in. I bought thousands of coal, a few hundred of each ore, and tens of thousands of wood and stone. I also crafted a ton of staircases just because I know I'll use them. I stopped by the desert to buy about 500 rhubarb seeds for tomorrow, and then I moved some items outside into chests around my new workbench. It was honestly a really fulfilling day. Day 113 was the first day of the new year. That meant that Kent stopped by to introduce himself. Hello, Kent. And then after that, it was just a mad dash to get crops in the ground. I bought seeds from Pierre and gathered up my strawberry and rhubarb seeds from earlier. I also had to get some scarecrows down in the big field, but that was no big deal. The center will be for coffee, so I just threw some mixed seeds in there for now. It was a busy day, and I went to sleep feeling excited for the new year. Since day 114 was a rainy day, I decided to double my rhubarb crop. But first, since the Joja Mart building had been struck by lightning the night before, I dropped off a fish, some wine, a gem worth more than my house, some grassy, mayo, and 5 fruits from the prehistoric era to help a Junimo get back home. I don't understand, but I'd do anything for those little apples. Then I made a trip to Sandy's to buy 500 more rhubarb. I spent the rest of the day tilling out land and putting down sprinklers, scarecrows, and eventually seeds. I had to steal my scarecrow from the center field away from his wife, which was heartbreaking, but it was for the greater good. That night, we danced on top of the old broken-down supermarket, and something happened. Day 115 was the day I decided it was finally time to get a horse. I picked up the last hardwood that I needed from the secret woods, grabbed some of my iron, and headed to Robin's. What an exciting moment for the farm. After that, I stopped by Ginger Island to see what my new key quest was. I had the options to pick Skull Cavern Invasion or the Hungry Challenge. Mr. Key is such an absolute melon. Did he not see me cheese this like a week ago? I have no honor. Well, before I left, I bought a deconstructor. Then I headed to the desert with 100 staircases in my back pocket and finished the challenge right then and there. Along the way, I picked up 100 or so more iridium and 2 more prismatic shards. Now I have enough for another magic rock candy, so we'll have to do a serious dive soon. Day 116 was soon enough for that serious dive. First though, I dropped off a rabbit's foot for Kent's birthday. Love that guy. But then I gathered up my dungeoneering supplies and headed to the desert. I don't want to go into too much detail, since I talked about this a couple of times in my first 100 days, but it's important to replenish my iridium stocks for both crafting and for extra income. Today, I managed to get down to floor 112. I picked up 3 more prismatic shards to replace one of my magic rock candies, as well as 3 iridium bars and 231 more ores. Smelted into bars, those ores would be worth 69,000 gold, which is nice, but I plan to use them for something else. Day 117 was another stormy day, which is awesome for batteries. In my infinite pettiness, I decided to name my new horse Mr. Key, but like with a K and an I. Key. Got him. Then it was just a matter of harvesting some garlic and parsnips and replacing them with strawberries before I headed off to Ginger Island to get my horse flute and work on gathering ginger for Caroline's request. Since ginger dropped by tiger slimes counts for this quest, I headed into the volcano mine for a while, but got stuck when I needed my watering can to open a door. Shucks. On day 118, I did the same thing. I built a bunch of crystallariums in the morning, but after that I just killed more tiger slimes and fire spirit thingies to work on the ginger quest and the Protector of the Valley goal. Oh, earlier in the day I also planted a garlic seed on the island, but that was kind of it for the day. Day 119 was the day my starfruit on Ginger Island were ready. That meant I needed to go buy more seeds from Sandy, but I'm actually a little low on liquid cash right now, so I only got 200. Then I harvested everything on the island and replaced them with new starfruit or pineapples, and restarted my kegs with a batch of starfruit wine. I also filled the preserves jars in the tunnel with whatever I had on hand, strawberries, pineapples, and crystal fruit this time. I made a healthy chunk of change overnight when I sold off all the wine and jelly that has been a brewin'. Day 120 was a Monday, which meant it was time to check on Mr. Key's quests and the bulletin board. The bulletin board had my worst nightmare: prismatic jellies. I had to take it, but it took me several minutes of staring at the screen to build up the courage to click that button. On Ginger Island, Mr. Key was not feeling very creative again, offering Skull Cavern Invasion and Hungry Challenge. I'm not sure I'll have time for either, but I took Invasion since it pays better. The rest of my day was spent hunting for the elusive prismatic slime. I didn't find it. On the bright side though, when I snuck into bed at 1:40 a.m., Maru was waiting for me to ask if we should have a baby. Hooray! I decided between day 120 and day 121 to look online for tips about prismatic jellies. Someone on Reddit said to spam floor 5 since slimes, crabs, and bugs are the only spawns and slimes are prioritized. I gave it a shot and got the prismatic jelly. Amazing. I spent the rest of the day hunting for more ginger for Caroline's request. It felt kind of sad since it was a very lucky day, but I really needed to prioritize that jelly this time, and I wasn't ready for another Skull Cavern dive anyway. On day 122, my pigs were all grown. Yummy, yummy truffle time. It was also another day of killing tiger slimes and magma sparkers, sprites. Those floaty, angry things, you know. I'm up to 63 ginger harvested with more than half the month left. I'll definitely make it, but this is kind of annoying. Not like Key's crop level, but up there. Day 123 was the day I remembered I planted garlic on Ginger Island. That meant I could finish the frog quest thingies. It looks like my banana tree is going to produce tomorrow also, so after I finish Birdie's fetch quest, that'll be it for the Golden Walnuts. Very exciting. Since Pam decided not to work today, I spent all day gathering ginger. I killed the last required angry embers today, so I'm completely finished with Protector of the Valley now. Amazing. On day 124, I decided to go ahead and wrap up Birdie's quest. While I was heading over to the wizard though, I found caviar for sale at the traveling cart. That means I can just go ahead and buy and ship one of those and skip catching sturgeon, which is really, really nice. I got the fairy dust recipe for the Birdie's quest and a few more golden walnuts. I also completed the banana shrine, so I went over to Mr. Key's to trade in all my extra walnuts for key gems. Then I got back to the ginger grind. I'm so close though, I can almost taste it. And it'll be really nice to have some solar panels getting batteries all the time. It's all coming together. Day 125 was the Egg Festival, but I honestly just do not care. I don't need to buy any crafting recipes, and I don't want to waste any time getting like 1,000 gold or whatever. Instead, I just did some random stuff. I learned how to not eat bugs from Jazz and Vincent, then the bear taught me how to better harvest blackberries and salmon berries, I guess. I also gave Krobus an iridium rabbit's foot since I felt bad for not really visiting. I finished Caroline's ginger shipping quest, and finally I watched Maru's 14-heart cutscene where we talked about the emptiness of the void and the fleeting moments we spend together. She told me to make a wish at the end, and I wished for a healthy birth for our baby. That night I got a meteorite event, which is about the coolest coincidence that has ever happened to me in this game, and if you tell me it's scripted, I'm just going to ignore you. Day 126 was a Sunday, which is my new keg day. That meant I had 150 delicious starfruit wines all ready to go up in the quarry. I crafted some more kegs and replaced the wine up there with all the starfruit I had, and it wasn't even enough. so I switched to rhubarb, since the first patch of that had matured this morning. Rhubarb can't compare to starfruit or even ancient fruit, but I can't plant starfruit on my farm in spring, and the ancient fruit isn't at that level yet. I also traded in a ton of jade for staircases today, so I was back over 50. I didn't end up completing the Skull Cavern invasion this time around, but I don't really mind. On day 127, I had the other half of my rhubarb harvest mature. As I walked back and forth, ripping the vegetable, called a fruit, by the game out of the ground, I thought to myself, I really need to get some Junimos over here. But that would have to wait because it was also Preserves Jar Day. I emptied the tunnel out and replaced everything with rhubarb. Then I headed out to check on my quest for the week. I took the Ectoplasm quest from the wizard, and Mr. Key had the same stupid Skull Cavern invasion, but also the cooking quest. That one wouldn't be hard, but it would be expensive. I took Skull Cavern again. I also harvested a ton of pineapples and made seeds from more ancient fruit at home. They're going to start exploding into Ginger Island soon. 53 seeds today. I cannot wait. On day 128, I gathered up those 53 seeds and headed to Ginger Island with some iridium sprinklers. I laid down a bit of pathing, but apparently I must have scrolled over to my warp totem because I found myself inexplicably back on my farm, which meant I had to hop back on Mr. Key and get another ride over to the island. I bet that was confusing for Willy. After I was done with my sprinkling, I headed to the mines to hunt for ectoplasm. I managed to find it with no real issues since I have the Monster Musk recipe now. But the wizard locked me out right as I was walking up to his door, which, I've worked retail, I get it, but it was still sad. On day 129, I dropped off the gooey ghosty bits with the wizard and he told me to go away because he needed some privacy with the goop. Got it. Then I did some errands, handed out some gifts, planted a few more ancient fruit, and headed to the Skull Cavern. I didn't plan on making it to 100 today, but I wanted to collect more radioactive ore, and I honestly didn't have enough time in the day to do much else. It was definitely worth the trip though, as I found a giant slime with a galaxy soul in it. I'll need 3 of those to upgrade my hammer, or sword, or dagger. I don't really know which one I want to use. But I got super lucky and the burglar ring procced here, so I ended up with 2 souls. That meant I could buy one from Mr. Key or from the island trader at the end of the month and upgrade my weapon of choice. Very, very nice. Day 130 was more of the same. It was raining, so no truffles, but it was a preserves jar day, so I replaced the rhubarb in the Wiggly Tunnel and sold that for about 60,000 gold. Not amazing, but not bad. Then I stopped by Evelyn's to give her a leek for George, gave an amethyst to Emily for Clint, kind of, and ventured over to Ginger Island to continue the ancient fruit expansion. After that, I headed to the desert to buy a magic rock candy and continue in the dangerous Skull Cavern. Nothing really exciting happened here today, but you know what? Not every day needs to be jam-packed with excitement. Sometimes we can just relax, appreciate how far we've come, and give thanks for the moment. You probably think there's a joke coming here, but I'm just in a good mood right now. On day 131, I did more errands. I'm working on friendship, so I gave out gifts like mangoes and flowers and basically whatever I had in my pockets. I also stopped by the Skull Cavern for a short while, but left on a dino floor because I just couldn't be bothered. That night, I started working my way through some of the crafting recipes. I could probably save this to do all at once, but I figured it would be nice to get some stuff knocked out. I also made a couple recipes from the items in my fridge. Day 132 was an incredible day. First of all, my starfruit was ready on Ginger Island. Very exciting. I also decided that I was going to upgrade my galaxy hammer to the infinity gavel. I grabbed my galaxy souls to upgrade and headed to the forge, but I left my shards at home. That was okay though, I needed to come back later anyway. Next was a trip to Sandy's to buy more starfruit, then over to Pierre to buy fertilizer. I really should have gotten this from Sandy earlier, but I forgot. Oh well. I headed back to Ginger Island and plant my fertilized starfruit, then did actually upgrade my hammer. That's a great feeling. It's incredibly fast. After that, I went home to deposit my starfruit for keg day tomorrow, but I had started them early enough last week that they were ready tonight. So I reloaded all my kegs with starfruit, then realized my preserves jars were ready too. Those got rhubarb. All said, I made just under 600,000 gold. Not bad. Day 133 was now or never for the dangerous Skull Cavern, and I decided it was now. After doing some chores at home, I set off for the desert, traded in my jade for staircases, and plunged into the depths. It was actually a very, very good day, despite my so-so luck. I came home with over 200 iridium, a couple prismatic shards, an auto grabber that I don't need, a pressure nozzle for a sprinkler, and I completed the quest. I also grabbed a bunch more gems from giant slimes along the way. I was pretty happy with my dive. Day 134 means we're a third of the way there. Today, I checked the job board and picked Gus's omelet quest. Then I planted more ancient fruit on Ginger Island with some deluxe speed grow, and I saw I could either do fishing or the Grange for Mr. Key. Honestly, I might not do either, but I picked the Grange one. Back home, I made more pineapple seeds, processed tons of my truffles, and collected some hardwood to build the other half of my mini obelisk set. Eventually, this center area is going to be full of warp totems and the golden clock. I'll have to move the obelisk, but it's okay where it is for now. That night, Maru gave birth to our first daughter, Tiny Pete. On day 135, I decided I was done paying Willie 1,000 gold every time I wanted to visit my timeshare. So, I have an island obelisk now. Very fun. I also visited Krobus and reset the mines for my eventual Junimo huts. It wasn't a busy day, but it was a big day. That obelisk is going to be so handy. Day 136 was the flower dance. Woo, so exciting. I started by doing my normal chores. My eels in the fish pond wanted a dwarf scroll 3, which, why? Instead of heading to the forest immediately for the dance, I stopped by Ginger Island to plant more of my ancient fruit seeds. I ended up having to take down some pineapples, but it's going to be worth it. When I got back home, I headed for the festival because I thought I still needed a crafting recipe from Pierre. I didn't. That meant I had to sit here through 35 seconds of terrifying silent pantomiming while we summoned a great evil upon our land. The flower dance without music is honestly just midsummer. On day 137, I had a decent luck day. I realized I needed more coffee, so I started some up in the kegs that I placed yesterday. I also made a quick trip to Ginger Island to get more ancient fruit into the ground. Then, since it was a Thursday, I traded in some prismatic shards for a magic rock candy and bought a full stack of deluxe speed grow from Sandy. I also made a dive into the Skull Cavern and came out with like 50 iridium. Not a lot, but not bad for only having half a day down there. Day 138 was kind of a weird day. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I spent some time in the Skull Cavern. Terrible luck meant I left early. I replaced some of my coffee in the kegs, I switched over the mines to the dangerous version, then I bought a full stack of explosive ammo. That was like a lot more expensive than I expected. But that's alright. We'll have a wine day coming up tomorrow. Day 139 was a great luck day, which is amazing because I just bankrupted myself buying all that explosive ammo. Well, instead of doing literally any of my chores, I ran straight for the Skull Cavern, and my goodness was it a great day. I brought 2 magic rock candies and all my stairs and plunged into the depths. With all that luck, you probably won't be surprised to hear that I found a treasure room on floor 46 with farm warp totems, another on floor 67 with a dark cowboy hat, a third on floor 91 with 4 life elixirs, okay. The obligatory floor 100 treasure room was my 4th one, and it had 15 pumpkin seeds, kinda lame, to be honest. But I had already found 4 prismatic shards and over 200 iridium at this point, so I was pretty happy with my haul. My 5th treasure room was floor 104, and it was an auto petter. Let's go! Floor 116 was my 6th, and it had an auto grabber. Shucks. Number 7, on floor 123, was some cactus seeds. Don't really need those. My 8th and final treasure floor was on 130, and it was a few rain totems. I actually like having a few of those. That was it for treasure floors, but check out my inventory on floor 140 where I left the mines. An auto petter, 6 prismatic shards, 514 iridium ore. Man, what a dive. I was thrilled with this one. Day 140 was the final day of spring. That meant I needed to get one last harvest from everything that I could and prepare for summer. I had picked up a ton of parsnips to replace all the rhubarb in my fields, so I picked and replanted both the large fields, and it took me basically all day. I made a quick pit stop to visit Sandy and to buy about 700 starfruit, which is less than I wanted, but that's okay. I'll have a big payday tonight. Before the day ended, I also replaced all my wine in the quarry with rhubarb, since I didn't have enough starfruit right now. I also restocked my preserves jars and made a cool 700,000 gold overnight. Not bad at all. Just as day 140 was a harvesting day, day 141 was a planting day. I visited Pierre and Sandy to get the necessary seeds and fertilizer for my fields, then I planted. All day. It wasn't exciting, but it is important. On day 142, I finally had some time to do something besides planting crops in my field, so I planted some crops on Ginger Island. I hadn't been there in a little bit, and all the starfruit was done, and the pineapples were ready as well. I replaced as many starfruit as I could with ancient fruit, then filled the rest in with my remaining starfruit seeds. It was a perfect fit, which I definitely planned. I checked Mr. Key's quest, and he had Skull Cavern Invasion again, so I took that. Back home, I snagged Fragments from the Past to get the Bone Crusher from Gunther. This is one of the items that actually pairs well with the hopper in my opinion, so I might snag the recipe for that one soon as well. I spent the night killing skeletons in the dangerous mines before heading off to bed. Day 143 was a good luck day, but I had no staircases left after my last dive, and the Skull Cavern was in dangerous mode anyway, so I decided to work on other projects today. I finished Gus's egg quest with lots of void eggs. That's going to be a weird omelet. I also made some more kegs and got more coffee brewing up in the quarry. It was a preserves jar day, so I swapped out all the rhubarb in there for more. And I could finally process egg artisan goods again, so I got a bunch of those started. I went to the mines to finish up Gunther's quest for bones, and I found a prismatic shard from a random enemy. Neat. I also finished the bone collection, so I'll have to drop those off soon. On day 144, I kinda wobbled around the town. First, I gave Jazz a flower for her birthday. Then I dropped off the bones for Gunther, stopped by Ginger Island to expand the ancient fruit field, processed more animal products, and made more coffee. I realized pretty late in the day that it was a Thursday, so I stopped by the desert to trade for a magic rock candy as well. In the dangerous skull cavern, I killed a dangerous squid kid, I guess, and I had a quest for that. So I rushed back home and talked to the wizard. It was a pretty slow day. On day 145, I grabbed another quest from the wizard. Weird. I'm still stopping over at Ginger Island pretty much every day to expand the ancient fruit crop, and today was no different. I did, however, stop at the museum today for the first time in a long time. I dropped off 2 artifacts and also gave some gifts to Alex, Vincent, and Penny. Not Jazz, though. I maxed my friendship with Krobus, then killed the 2 ghosts for Rasmodius, and visited him before heading off to bed. On day 146, I was just continuing to work on my friendships. It was a bad luck day, so there really wasn't much to do. Since I was pretty far behind with Dwarf, I invited them to the Journey of the Prairie King movie and bought them some rock candy. Dwarf loves every movie, so this is a great way to increase friendship with them since you might not visit that part of the map very often. I also decided to build a hopper and bone mill so I could start getting some fertilizer from it. This is one of the very few combinations with a hopper that I actually like. Plus, I have to make both of them anyway. Might as well get some use out of it. Day 147 was a Sunday and the day that I needed to complete the Skull Cavern invasion. I had plenty of time though, so I continued the very, very exciting task of expanding my ancient fruit field on Ginger Island. Are you getting tired of that yet? It was also wine day, though I had run out of starfruit last week, so this batch would only be worth a couple 100,000 instead of well over 500,000. When I was done with those chores, I took my enormous stack of jade to the desert and traded them for staircases. Then I did what I always do when Mr. Key comes calling. I cheated. I ended up making it past floor 100, collecting yet another auto grabber, and then heading home. At home, another batch of jade was done, so I rushed back to the desert, traded them for staircases, then finally returned home again for a nice long nap. On day 148, I realized I had like 2 clams, and I need way more than that for the obelisk, so I headed to the sewer to change my profession. Then I put down some crab pots on the beach and headed to Ginger Island for the usual. I've now reached the point where my only crops on Ginger Island that aren't ancient fruit are starfruit. I'll need to come back soon and get some more sprinklers down though. And speaking of the travel, all this running back and forth is not the most efficient use of my time, but now that I have both the horse flute and the obelisk at home and on Ginger Island, it's really not a huge deal. I also picked up Linus's Clean the Waters quest and ignored Mr. Key's 2 options because they were fishing or the color one. Day 149 was a very lucky day, which meant I should have done a Skull Cavern dive, but it was almost time for dinner in real life, and I kinda just didn't want to. Instead, I did some other chores. I picked up the Lucky Charm from the Secret Note guy by giving him a rabbit's foot. Linus, Willie, and I talked to Leo about maybe staying in Pelican Town sometimes. And I did in fact make more sprinklers and plant even more ancient fruit on Ginger Island. We are reaching maximum capacity very quickly here, which is good. This will be a source of income for the rest of this save file. Overnight, Leo's bird friends remodeled a tree into a small home for him, which, come to think of it, they also fixed my island house instantaneously. Why am I paying Robin for this kind of stuff? Day 150 already. Wow, we are absolutely flying through this. Today was the first of 3 starfruit harvests. Since I got deluxe speed grow down, we'll just barely squeak in a 3rd harvest, which is awesome. This took me so long, and my hands kind of hurt after this, so I decided to invest in some Junimo labor to help me out. I gathered enough fiber to make 4 huts, but that's not going to be enough. I'm still going to be harvesting some stuff by hand. Oh well, maybe I'll fix it later. I'm also beginning to stockpile ancient fruit instead of running it through the seed maker, so this is really exciting. Those starfruit, by the way, turned into wine, they'll be worth just over 3 million gold. I'm going to need more kegs. Or possibly preserves jars. People don't like preserves jars as much, but when you're trying to push profit by day, they're actually really competitive. So if we can't get oak resin fast enough, and honestly I should have focused on it a bit more earlier in the run, preserves jars are actually really, really good too. Just over 2/3 the profit in like half the time. Oh, and I did a nice smile before going to bed since this was an important day. Day 151 was the luau, but I had other plans to take care of first. I gathered all the processed goods from my shed, including some goat cheese that will go quite nicely with Marnie's soup. Then I crafted 100 more preserves jars and 25 tappers. I should have done this a long time ago, but I just keep forgetting. I headed to the desert, tapped some oak trees, and placed down some wiggly jars. I had to mess with the layout a couple of times as I was just doing this freehand with no planning, but it mostly turned out alright. Then it was off to the luau where Harvey made a weird pass at my wife. But at least everyone loved my goat cheese soup. Then it was back to the desert because I forgot to get my magic rock candy for the day. Busy day for a festival. On day 152, I really struggled right away. It was a great luck day, but I had a lot to do. I decided I wouldn't abandon my chores for the Skull Cavern today, no matter how tempting it was, but I would make a trip there later. I had preserves jars to do today in the tunnel. I grabbed a quest to give my father-in-law a diamond, and I finished Linus's quest to clean up the waters. After scraping all my jelly into the shipping container with some cheese and truffle oil for Lewis, I headed to the Skull Cavern, where I actually made some decent progress, despite not getting to the desert until 2 p.m. I found a treasure floor on 48 with more cactus seeds. Really don't need those. Another one on 76 had a big slime, which I'm not sure I've ever seen before. Neat. The chest had an iridium sprinkler, which, okay. Notably though, at 1 a.m. when I was trying to decide whether I should hit one more floor, I found a prismatic shard in an iridium node in the top right and the bottom left of floor 78. And that just proves that gambling always pays off. Day 153 was a wine day, and I'm also going to try to do my ancient fruit on Saturdays. So I used this little pineapple as a reminder in my kitchen, but I instantly forgot about it after this week. I also had some melons outside, so I threw 15 of those in the bin for the polyculture achievement and started on my work. I stopped by Ginger Island and found out that I didn't have enough ancient seeds to replace my starfruit, so I had to make some more seeds back home. Since it was also Alex's birthday today, I gave him a rabbit's foot to max him out. We're doing quite well on friendship now. I only need Evelyn, Vincent, George, Kent, and Dwarf now. Neat. That night, I made over 600,000 gold from all the wine, and that'll only get better since nearly a third of what I shipped that day was actually pineapple wine. I have a feeling we're gonna do okay for money from now on. Day 154 was another very lucky day, but it was also a Sunday, which means my jade can become staircases, which is very nice. I finished up my chores, though I probably should have skipped them, and dove into the Skull Cavern looking for loot. I only took one magic rock candy since I was starting a little later, but that should be fine. I found a blue cowboy hat on floor 17, a red cowboy hat on floor 33, and a second auto petter on floor 46. Let's go! A couple rain totems on floor 48, and a prismatic shard on 85. The obligatory floor 100 treasure chest was quality sprinklers, which are actually not a bad thing for me to get. I can always deconstruct them if I need to. On floor 137, I found an apple sapling, which I threw away. That sapling was my last treasure floor, and I only made it down to 139 before I needed to head back home. But I did walk away with 439 iridium ore, 5 prismatic shards, and a second auto petter, so I was pretty jazzed. Day 155 was a preserves jar day. Technically yesterday was the jar day in the oasis, but if I do them both today, they'll be on the same timer. I took starfruit to the oasis and rhubarb to the tunnel. This little backpack full of jelly is going to be worth nearly 300,000 gold every 2 to 3 days. That's pretty exciting. For my quest this week, I picked up some tuna fishing from Demetrius because I thought I needed the farm computer. I did not. And from Mr. Key, I grabbed the prismatic grange, which I will probably continue to ignore, to be honest. I spent the later part of my day cleaning up the quarry for more kegs and getting more hardwood from the secret woods. It felt like one of those groundwork days. I didn't do a lot, but it still felt good. On day 156, I definitely did something. Oh, I know. I built the desert obelisk. That's important. I also snagged the desert warp totem recipe while I was thinking about it, and continued to collect clams from the beach. I need more of those to build the beach obelisk. Also, I went to the movies with Dwarf. It was a rerun, but Dwarf does not care. I got myself, and/or Tiny Pete, a pink Junimo plush while I was there. To round out my day, I collected some fiber from the mines. You can just never have enough of this stuff. Day 157 was the day of Demetrius. I spent my morning and early afternoon fishing up 10 tuna that he needed. I also need tuna for my recipe completion, so it's not completely a waste. Then, when he got home from Ginger Island, I gave him a melon he had asked for last summer, and a pufferfish that he sent me a letter about a couple days ago. We're a healthy family. He said he wishes he could make my life on the farm easier. How cute. Later on, I built the water obelisk, which means I just need the earth one to finish my set. It's starting to get a little crowded in that central area, but once the coffee beans are gone, I'll be able to move stuff around. On day 158, I felt like I couldn't do anything right on the first try. I kept forgetting things back on the farm, running back and forth and accomplishing so little. It was a jelly day, so I took care of that, but I realized I had oak resin for kegs, so I wanted to make more. Oh, but I forgot to turn in my prismatic shards for candy. Well, no problem. That's all set. Now off to the quarry. Except I didn't make the kegs yet, and I didn't have enough iron or copper bars for them. So it was a mad dash all day. I bought some resources from Clint, made some bars, which I turned into kegs and filled the quarry. It is almost completely full now. That's wild. Soon we'll have to move into some new areas for processing. On day 159, I crafted. Like, all day. It was a craftorama. I knocked out a ton of recipes. I know I still need the deluxe scarecrow, which means I need to go to the casino at some point, but I feel good about my progress. I think there are a couple things left from Mr. Key, but I might have already got all the recipes from the special requests. I'm not quite sure. It was also Starfruit Day, but my Junimo friends, did most of the heavy lifting. I put more seeds in the ground and prepared myself for another beautiful day on the farm. If day 159 was about crafting, then day 160 was about cooking. I put on my best Chef Brandigan hat and learned that I needed a lot more ingredients. Part of buying Pierre's shopping list was for this very reason though. And if we miss out on any fish, we can get the magic bait. But I definitely need to zero in on cooking because I could only make a handful of recipes today. Maru also told me that she really appreciates all the work I do for our family today, which was super sweet. Other than that, I also had a keg day. Woohoo! That's another 800,000 gold in my pocket, which means we can do the Earth obelisk soon. Or I could just wait until fall when I redo the fields. It's kind of a coin flip, depending on how I feel. Day 161 was another day of cooking, but it was also the day that Mayor Lewis made a demand of me so boldly that I had no choice but to be impressed. You'll get your truffle oil, Lewis, just you wait. I also accidentally bought 6 fridges when I meant to buy 2. Whoops. Can you imagine if your spouse went to visit your mom and came home with 6 fridges? Our house is getting a little messy, but we'll have plenty of time to fix that later. For now, I worked through some more recipes. I need to get back to fishing though, and it looks like I didn't save much from last fall. I still have a long way to go on the recipes. Day 162 was Dwarf's birthday. I loaded up a couple of iridium rabbit's feet, one was for Kent, and headed off on my day. I gave Kent his foot, Dwarf their foot, which maxed our hearts, nice. Then I dug up some cave carrots for more recipes, and after processing a butt ton of truffles, I stopped over to Ginger Island to give Leo this feather I've been carrying around for a week or so. He loved it. I also blew up the dig site for more bones and fished up a midnight carp while I was here. On day 163, I decided I didn't want my maple or pine trees in the tree farm anymore. I cut everything down and started getting more acorns planted, but I only had like 4. So I ran through Cindersap Forest collecting more acorns for home. I also checked around the mines and the spa, but apparently all I had put up there were pine trees. I made a quick pit stop to the oasis since I had decent luck. I had hardly any iridium, and I still needed to craft the desert warp totem. While I was there, I shook some trees for more acorns and also picked up 1 oak resin. This let me craft some fertilizer, so I think I'm getting pretty close to completing the crafting portion. Gotta remember to get to the casino soon though. Day 164 was a jelly day, which is always exciting. I switched to mostly ancient fruit here because, I don't know. I also had more oak resin, which meant more kegs for the quarry. Probably not a lot of time left here before I have to think about the backwoods or Ginger Island or something. When I was done with my chores for the day, I grabbed a ginger ale and a lucky lunch from my cooked recipe chest and headed to the casino. It was time to become a degenerate. Don't tell Maru, Tiny Pete. I bought a couple thousand coins and only spent like 3 minutes betting before getting a 20k roll, so I bought the rare crow I needed and then spent the rest of my day in the Skull Cavern. Even with all my luck, it wasn't a very impressive day, but I also started pretty late. That night I got the most annoying crop fairy I have ever seen. She just lazily flew across my entire field, and honestly, that doesn't save me any time at all, like not 1 second. Thanks for nothing. Day 165 started out normal enough. I got the letter with the deluxe scarecrow recipe. I saw my stupid Junimos picking my stupid starfruit, which meant I was going to have to plant some stupid coffee to replace it. But then, while wandering around the town for some reason I can't remember, I saw the bulletin board. I haven't picked up any quests this week, oh no! Well, I grabbed Rock Rejuvenation for Emily. I can get that done today. And a little later I went to check on the key quests. I still need 2 recipes worth 20 and 30 key gems. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. I'm a Sucker key has danger in the deep for me. Well, no problem. I dropped off the gems with Emily, seeing a cutscene about my delicious eggs along the way, then started heading into the mines. I'll be able to use stairs for this on Sunday if I want, but I can at least get a head start. Day 166 was Leo's birthday, so I made sure to give him a duck feather to max out his hearts. That means we just have George and Kent left. Awesome. The rest of the day, not so awesome. I made it down another 30 floors to 45 in the dangerous mines, and I got some radioactive ore. But otherwise, nothing of note really happened. I don't, hate the dangerous mines, but I'd prefer to just skip this. We'll see where we're at on Sunday when I can trade in over 100 jade for staircases, though. Day 167 was set to be the most profitable day ever on this save. The kegs and preserves jars were both done today, which meant I was going to have well, let's just look later. Between harvesting my ancient fruit, filling kegs and preserves jars, and trying to give George 3 gifts in 1 week, shame on me, I didn't have much time for progress in the dangerous mines. I made it down to 55, only 10 floors, and went to bed nauseated. The sweet, sweet view of my income that night helped my upset tummy though. Over 1 million gold yesterday. You love to see it. Day 168 was the final day of summer. The last day of a season is always a mad scramble for me. I want to make sure, if possible, to put seeds in the ground so all my fields stay watered overnight. On top of that normal stress, today was my final starfruit harvest of the season, and I had to finish the mines today. I started my day by harvesting the remaining crops from the field outside my front door, then headed to the mines and knocked out the danger in the deep quest. Neat. That's the last 50 key gems that I technically need. Then I came back home and replaced starfruit with coffee beans. These will die overnight, but that's okay. They'll have served their purpose. As I finished my other chores, I got the notification that the Moonlight Jellies were in town. I really enjoy this festival. It's a good reminder that humans change the world, but the world goes on regardless. The jellies always come back to Pelican Town, no matter how much or how little you've done since the last season. But just as the jellies are off on a new adventure, it's time for us to open the book on fall. The first day of a new season is nearly as hectic as the final one. Today I had to clear the dead plants from my fields, then I swung by Pierre's to buy seeds. He had the absolute nerve to take the first day of the season off. Wow. I still paid for my crops though. And I went to Sandy to buy some beets as well. Then it was planting time, and boy did I plant. I also checked out the job boards and took fishing from Willie and the infamous Keys crop from Mr. Key. I have hundreds of geodes at home that I've been saving for this very moment. Oh, by the way, I bought the last 2 recipes from Mr. Key's shop thing. Then I went home and cooked some food with cranberries since I had some fully grown on Ginger Island. We're coming down the home stretch, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. On day 170, I realized I had run out of wood. The tens of thousands of wood I had bought from Robin hadn't even lasted until the end of the year. Yikes. I stopped over by the forge with my prismatic shards, planning to use as many as necessary to get shaving for more wood, but I got it right away. I then tried my pick and got powerful. I mean, I don't know what I expected. I probably should have done the hoe too, but I didn't know it at the time. Then, geodes. I rolled up to Clint's door like a last-minute shopper on Christmas Eve. For like 10 minutes in real life, he cracked geodes and I clicked. I barely got any donations out of it, but I did get some key beans. I planted those and cut down some trees for even more. We'll hit that bean goal, no problem. Day 171 was a great luck day, and while I probably could have worked on some other chores, I took the opportunity to make a skull cavern trip. I found treasure floors on 23, 43, 45, 71, 88, 94, 99, 100, of course, 106, 137, 153, and 202. And while 12 treasure floors is a really cool accomplishment, and getting to floor 207 is nothing to sneeze at either, I didn't find much more of interest down here than the 500 some iridium ore or 8 prismatic shards I picked up. Not that that's worth complaining about, there just wasn't really a standout treasure this time. I also made it back home in time to plant 21 key seeds that I'd picked up from the cave before crawling into bed at 150. On day 172, I was starting to sweat. I was feeling a little worried about the museum, to be honest. So, after my normal morning routine, I headed to Clint's, despite the good luck of the day. I cracked enough geodes to get my last 2 minerals, then traded the rest of my Omni geodes for artifact troves. I got an ornamental fan, which is great, but I still have a few things to find. I also gave Kent a rabbit's foot today, which means we'll be at max after 1 more gift. And I rounded out my night by getting ready for even more kegs. Between days 172 and 173, I did some calcs and realized that I wasn't quite on track to hit my gold requirements by the end of 200 days. That wasn't an enormous deal, because my napkin math didn't include selling through stockpiled iridium or things like that, but it was slightly concerning. Since I was also low on wood, pushing that number up without spending too much was going to be an issue as well. For now, I switched back to starfruit in my preserves jars to increase short-term income and place more kegs in the spa area. I also gave Kent a rabbit's foot today, which means I'm at max hearts with everyone in town. Now I can focus on my other goals like the museum and gold clock. For the first time in a while, I passed out off my farm, replacing wines just to squeak out every little bit of time I could. Day 174 was a Saturday, which means carpal tunnel as I harvest all the ancient fruits. My key fruit project is still progressing as well, and I had some pumpkins fully grown on Ginger Island. So I came back to make a couple more dishes for the cooking completion. There's not a lot of time left in this leg of the run, and I'm starting to get a little nervous. I tried to switch my profession to pirate overnight, but I held down the left click button in just the wrong spot and ended up just picking Lure Master for crab pots. Dang. On day 175, I picked some beets to start my day, did another round of key bean swapping, and made my final crafting item, the jack-o'-lantern. That's one more step toward perfection. I ran through the quarry mine searching for a skeletal hand, but no dice. Then I spent pretty much the rest of the day cutting down trees in Cindersap Forest before realizing way too late that I should probably try to get Archaeologist on my hoe to help get the last few items I need. After I did that, I searched the beach for items but didn't get anything good. Well, is what it is, I guess. I also forgot to switch my profession today. On day 176, I decided it was time to stop being stingy. I have to spend money to make money. I'd cut down a lot of trees, but I had nowhere near enough wood, so I made a trip to Robin's and dropped hundreds of thousands of gold on more wood. Then I crafted over 100 more preserves jars for the desert and made my jelly run. This was pushing 450,000 before these jars, so we'll be approaching 700,000 gold per jelly day. Not bad. I am going to run out of starfruit at some point though. I also headed back to the quarry to search for the skeletal hand, and I got 2 pairs of baggy pants. Legitimately, from 2 different floating skulls. How are you guys wearing these? But I also got my skeletal hand. That means I'm really, really close on artifacts. Tomorrow I need to drop that off, and I'll open some artifact troves while I'm in the area. Then we can reassess what I still need. Day 177 was a rainy day, which meant I could get the eels I needed for 2 recipes. Before that though, I got salmon and a couple sardines, which I needed for salmon dinner and dish of the sea. I spent so long trying to get eels. And while I did get them eventually, the fact that my calculator said 17 to 25% or so was such an insult. After that, I headed to the Duggies area of the mines. Duggies can drop the chewing stick that I need, and the rusty cog can be found in the mine's dirt. I actually got the rusty cog nearly right away. I think it came from the ground when I killed a slime with my napalm ring, not sure. And a couple floors later, I landed in the middle of Duggie City. I had prepared some monster musk for this, so they were just everywhere. It didn't take long before I got my chewing stick. Now all I need for the museum is the ancient sword. I switched my fishing profession to pirate, and I need to get some carp for cooking, so if I get treasure, I could find it there. But I can also get it from artifact troves, so we should be good to go. Day 178 was a very good luck day, so I figured I'd probably be best to head to the Skull Cavern and get more Omni Geodes to trade for artifact troves. I didn't bother taking my magic rock candy because I wasn't really concerned with diving. In fact, when I ended up on mummy floors, I tended to stick around a little to get more geodes from the ghosts floating around. I ended up getting 29 more Omni Geodes, which is only about another 5 troves. That's not a ton. And the sword is a constant 3.7% chance to appear, so that's bad. I might need to start doing a lot more fishing. Overnight, I got a stone owl somewhere on my farm, which is cool, but not nearly as rare as it used to be. Day 179 was a jelly day, which is fun, but also takes up a lot of the day now. I also wanted to make more kegs, but realized I'm now at a copper and iron bottleneck. I started more bars today and should be fine for this round of oak resin harvesting, but I need to either buy more ores or spend more time searching for these ones specifically. When I was done with my normal chores, I headed to the mountain lake to do some fishing. I didn't find the ancient sword, which wasn't super surprising, but I did get all the carp I needed to cook my last currently available recipe. Carp surprise. Yum. Day 180 was a keg day, since I just barely managed to get all my wine done last Friday night before passing out in the mud. This will be nice, since tomorrow is going to be ancient fruit harvest. I kinda need to separate those two, since they both take quite a lot of time. We'll have another million or so gold coming in overnight, which is good since there's only 20 days left before we hit the big 200. Later that day, I went fishing with ginger ale and spicy eel to buff my luck. No ancient sword, though. Day 181 was an ancient fruit day on Ginger Island, which always takes up quite a bit of time. I also decided to clear out some of my quest log today, so I gave Gus a lobster and an albacore, and I brought an amaranth over to Marnie. I need to find a largemouth bass for Jody still, but that can wait. After all my chores and gifting were done, I spent the rest of my day fishing from that same old spot I started at, all the way back at the beginning of the run. It was nostalgic, in a way, but nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, and it certainly didn't provide me with an ancient sword. Day 182 was a pumpkin day, and a preserves jar day. I also stopped by Willie's to buy a few treasure bobber thingies since I kept forgetting about that. But I didn't have time to do much more than replace all the starfruit jellies with ancient fruit and harvest and replant all those pumpkins. So many pumpkins. I got 4 giant pumpkins today, which is wild to me since it was the first day I could get any at all and I hardly ever see them. Also, my Junimos didn't even finish their harvesting. Bunch of lazy jerks. On the bright side, I made another 800,000 gold overnight, so we're closing in on the gold clock. Day 183 was a rainy Monday. I didn't have any really specific goals in mind other than the ancient sword, of course, so I just worked on the keys crop quest and accidentally teleported myself to the oasis trying to pick this fruit. Twice. After that, I built the earth tower and considered moving some farm buildings around. I did move the fish pond, but I still want to finish my key bean harvest before moving anything else. I got that largemouth bass for Jody today and slapped the whole thing down on her living room floor. Then grabbed a fishing quest from Willie and headed to Ginger Island for the night. Nothing to report here, though. Day 184 was the Stardew Valley Fair, and while I probably should have been working toward the ancient sword or something, I cannot possibly turn down an excuse to clown on Pierre. So I gathered up a bunch of garbage from my storage boxes and headed into town. The key to a good Grange display is the arrangement. That's not true, of course, but it's what I always tell myself when I put a prismatic shard at the center of my display. I didn't even have to slip Lewis a $5 this year, as I cleanly came out ahead of Pierre with 104 points. After that, I checked the shop, but didn't want anything, so I had a burger with my wife and headed to Ginger Island to catch more fish. I finished the blue discus part, but that was it. Day 185 was another jellies day. I've switched over to ancient fruit again as I'm just running a little low on starfruit. We'll still break 500,000 gold on jelly days, so this isn't exactly heartbreaking. To continue my theme of doing good stuff for people who don't deserve it, I dropped off some gold pumpkins for Pierre. This is like the worst crop to give him, but I don't have enough of anything else right now, and I don't want to forget about it. After that, I headed to Ginger Island and fished the day away. I caught the remaining lionfish and stingrays. No ancient sword, though. On day 186, I continued to flail uselessly against my fate. I harvested my oak resin, which was just starting to build up since I was out of bars and couldn't possibly go to the mines while I was on this stupid artifact hunt. Then I fished for a while, got a whole bunch of treasure but no sword, and decided to go straight to the cause of and solution to all of life's problems: gambling. I messed around in the casino for a while until I had enough key coins to buy 42 magnets, and between those and a couple treasure bobbers that I crafted, I got nothing. Neat. Day 187 was a wine day, so I guess if I have to be a failure, at least I'll be a multi-millionaire failure. They say that money doesn't buy happiness, but actually the only people that say that are the ones that aren't barely keeping it together. And now that I own a hobby farm with annual incomes that put me in the 1%, I can safely say that while money might not buy happiness, it does buy a gold clock. And isn't that more important anyway? It was also a jellies day, by the way. I did manage to replace all my jellies with pumpkins to make pickles, but I also passed out in the desert. Oh well. Day 188 was a Saturday, and Saturdays are for the ancient fruit on Ginger Island. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, I guess. Either way, I sold off those jellies and harvested my ancient fruits. Then, because I could not bring myself to spend one more day fishing, I headed for the Skull Cavern. I figured I'd just spend some more time in here getting Omni Geodes for more artifact troves. I actually had a bunch of geodes at home too, so I turned them all in for 9 artifact troves. Fingers crossed for our ancient sword. Day 189 was a completely, totally normal day in every way. I started the day by realizing I was all done with Key's crop. Fantastic. Then I stopped by the desert with over 200 jade. Dang, I've been slacking. But that's a lot of staircases for more Skull Cavern dives, which means more Omni Geodes. On that topic, I decided to head to Clint's and crack those 9 artifact troves. I got a rusty spur, an arrowhead, a dwarf gadget, an ornamental fan, and a pearl. Interesting. That's the wedding dress and the veil, right? Maybe if I ever remarry. And a golden mask. Oh, and the ancient sword. Wait, what? Let's go. Wait, no. Let's see these next two. Glass shards and chipped amphora. Okay, well, obviously I ran and turned the ancient sword into Gunther, which means I completed the collection and got the final star drop. And man, does it feel good. I didn't really know what to do with myself next. Since my fields would be empty soon, I bought a couple hundred eggplants, which would at least give me one crop, and then leave the ground tilled. After planting those, I kind of just messed around with decorating that central area of my farm. I thought that there were going to be 3 spaces in the center for the golden clock, but there aren't. I might have to move it somewhere else. But who cares? We got the sword! Day 190 was a pickles day, which is weird to say since it's usually jellies. I was also feeling it when it came to revenue from these pickles. Might have to switch back to ancient fruit, but I kind of didn't realize in time. I decided for these last few days that I would try to get some of the secrets around town too. So I grabbed a super cucumber and a void mayonnaise and cooked a strange bun. I got the frogman thing, the HMTGF question mark thingy, and you need a duck mayo, not a void mayo for Pinky Lemon. Dang, that'll have to wait. Then I took a grub quest from Clint and a skull cavern quest from Mr. Key. I decorated around the farm a bit and went to the caves before bed. I was feeling relaxed as heck. Day 191 was a great luck day, so I figured why not head to the Skull Cavern and knock out that hungry challenge right away. I made it down past 100, gathering up a bunch of treasure rooms along the way, but I didn't really get anything too exciting. Probably the most interesting thing to happen was that I got a red slime egg and a blue cowboy hat on back-to-back treasure floors. At about 5 p.m., I just kind of thought to myself, I don't need to be doing this. I'm going home. And I did. I went home and sold a few things that had just been piling up, and then I decorated, and it was amazing. This top little corner of my farm is looking pretty nice. I have a couple things to move, but I'm pretty happy with it. On day 192, I woke up just over 20,000 gold away from 10 million. So after doing my normal morning chores, I headed to Pierre's to sell some pineapples. That brought me over 10 million, so my next stop was to the wizard. It's time to get the most expensive item in the game out of the way. I'm not sure where I want the golden clock, so I just plopped it unceremoniously behind my chicken coop for now. What a perfect spot. Then I grabbed Pinky Lemon from the bar with the duck mayonnaise and stuffed him in a chest because I don't know where to put him. Then it was time for decorating. I decided that I wanted to move my workbench and chests into the shed, and I consolidated some chests as well. I got so into decorating that I didn't even notice how late it was getting and passed out in my shed for possibly the first time ever. Day 193 was a pickles day, and I had a lot of ancient fruit lying around, so I swapped back over to jellies. I also picked up a phone from Robin and did all the little house upgrade thingies while I was there. On my way home, I snagged the catalog from Pierre's. I updated the sheds, walls, and floors, then redid parts of my house. I still need the furniture catalog from Robin when I have a little more money, but I can at least get started. I made the bottom room a little bit of a museum, I guess, for now. The main floor will be a living space eventually, and then upstairs I'll probably do a hobby room or aquarium on the left and a bedroom on the right. Or I might flip them. Who knows? It was kind of fun that today was a great luck day, and I just didn't care at all. I was just vibing. Day 194 was another wine day, and that meant a lot of money was about to come in. I ended up selling my wine to Pierre this time instead of waiting for the shipping bin because I wanted to make a couple of big purchases. I got the furniture catalog and a couple calendars from Robin. Then I started the house project for Pam. She had to wait, until I finished my perfection goals, but now I can afford it. I even put off getting the return scepter for this, so you better appreciate it, Pam. Then I spent the rest of my day decorating again. I redid the walls in the bedroom and furnished it, added windows throughout the house, moved some paintings around, and got some plushies for Tiny Pete. I also turned the upper left room into an aquarium/reading room and included the sewing machine I got from Emily. It's looking nice in here. Day 195 was an ancient fruit day, so I juiced up on coffee and crab cakes and headed to Ginger Island. I actually forgot my greenhouse, I think. Oh well. When I got back, the work wasn't done though. It was also the second and final pumpkin harvest of the season. This was the last crop I hadn't shipped 15 of since I was always processing them. So I sold a whole bunch of gold ones to get that little star. I moved my silo and had Robin start a second one. Crazy how she can build Pam a house and work on a silo for me. Then I decorated some more. I think the house is coming together. There are a couple of empty spaces I need to think about, but for the most part I'm pretty happy with it. It's kind of silly that I never make time to decorate until the very end of the game. Wouldn't I enjoy it more if it were like this the whole time? Anyway, I passed out in the living room tonight since I wasn't watching the clock. Oh, and I skipped Spirits Eve. Day 196 was the final day of fall, and honestly, that didn't mean much because I wasn't waiting on any specific crops. So I just started my day by decorating some more. Then, as I thought more, I realized it was probably a jellies day, and it certainly was. Well, there's another 500,000 gold for us, so that's pretty neat. When I was done with all that business, I went back to cleaning up and decorating. I'm thinking about redoing the 2 southern fields, so I removed all the sprinklers and scarecrows from down there. I put them all in a shed so they can be happy together. But that was it. That's how I spent my last day of fall. It was nice. On day 197, I was in full aesthetic mode. I installed a little kids crafting type table. Cute. And I threw another end table under the calendar in the front, perfect for keys or whatever. Then I stashed the catalogs in the fridge, because why not? I stopped in town to see that Pam had a new house, but since I'm probably like the second most humble person I know, I didn't even tell them it was from me. Then I got a few cabins installed around the farm, again, just for the aesthetic. I redid the area around my bottom left field, adding a little fence and lights, as well as a lovely little path leading toward the pond down there. I'm honestly pretty proud of that. Day 198 was another relaxing crafting day. I picked up some grass starts from Pierre, just a reminder that I use winter grass to make this possible. Then I put them around the small pond area I worked on yesterday. I also put down some seating and a campfire down there, as well as a couple of braziers for light. I think it looks really neat. Then I moved a few things around and cut down my oak resin farm. I don't really need one anymore, but even if I did, I still have trees that I could use these tappers on in the oasis. I moved the cabin in that area up north and made some fences and pathing for the various entrances. This is all going to be for my sweet, sweet animals. I hope they like it. On day 199, I decided to get back to the secret hunting I had talked about a while ago. I took my fishing rod to the volcano and got the master enchantment. Then I headed to the desert to fish up the pyramid decal. I got bored though, so I went to get Krobus before my food buff wore off. Then I went to the secret woods for the hanging basket, and also got the foliage print from Ginger Island. I was going to go for the squirrel too, but I forgot my watering can. Oh yeah, and it was a jellies day today, and I sold some extra ancient fruit because I wanted to break 2 million gold for something tomorrow. It's finally day 200, huh? It feels like time has just been flying. Well, I've accomplished my goals, so today is just for fun. I went to the desert and cut down all the mahogany trees I planted oh so long ago and replaced them with oak. I also tapped the trees that were missing tappers while I was there. Then I stopped by the wizards to move some stuff around. We need to clear out the area around Grandpa's shrine if he's going to visit soon. I still wasn't sure where I wanted to put the golden clock, but I ended up plopping it right between the greenhouse and my shed. Then I spruced it up a little bit. Gaudy? Maybe so, but a 10 million gold clock demands a certain level of opulence. And I mean, so what if it's tacky? It's fun. After that, I fished up a squirrel statue, which I put in Tiny Pete's room. Then it was time. How far had I come? Well, I mostly knew. But still, I stopped to visit Mr. Key, who said he's always watching. What a creep. And there it was. 99%. All that's missing are the winter year 2 recipes. I want to say that I felt victorious, but honestly I felt a little hollow. I still had my final field to decorate. I still only had one child, though Tiny Pete is great, for a serial killer, don't get me wrong. When I got back home, I said goodnight to Maru, tucked in Tiny Pete, and crawled into bed myself. And you know what? I think maybe there's just a little bit left to do.